right, it is 3 o'clock, and I am a stickler for starting on time, and we're going to end on time, and Brittany and Bethany are pumped to be here. But first, I have to go over the housekeeping rules. You've probably heard them several times because you've been in several sessions, and they're all the same. Silence your cell phones, ask questions on the app. We will do a Q&A at the end. The session is being recorded, so if you need to leave the room, please don't walk in front of the camera. It'll be awkward for you, not us later. And then exits. So you came in the doors, there's all the exits to your right and to the back of the room. And we will try to end this session at 3:45. These ladies are going to be on time.
There's alcohol right after here.
I know, yes, you all have free drink tickets, right? So, but first, our sponsor of the professional development track is People's Security Bank, and we have Amanda Friday here with us to introduce our speakers. So, Amanda?
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Friday, and I am the Assistant Vice President, Branch Manager of People's Security Bank, Manuka office. The Empower Women's Conference strives to show that all women have the ability to create positive change in their local communities. As a community bank, we have a commitment to support local charities, nonprofits, and community events. Each year, People's Security Bank is proud to support this fantastic conference and sponsor this year's leadership track. I am pleased to introduce your speakers, Bethany Staples and Brittany Watts. Bethany Staples is the CEO and owner of Market Share Consulting. She strategically develops strong and effective marketing and advertising plans for her clients to help them identify and take their market share. Staples is the Vice President of Education for the American Advertising Federation Board of Directors. She was a 2023 nominee of Young Professionals Awards Women's Leadership Award by Athena International. In addition, Market Share Consulting was awarded the Sage Best Practices in Marketing and Communications Award from the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce in 2022. When Staples is not busy consulting or strategizing, you can find her spending time traveling with her husband and daughters, flying her drone, or getting her hands dirty in the next DIY home improvement project. Staples holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Scranton. Brittany Watt is the Executive Creative Director for Market Share Consulting. With more than 13 years of experience in marketing and advertising, she crafts compelling narratives and effective creatives across diverse channels that is a purposeful blend of business acumen and creative expression. Running parallel to her corporate pursuits is a creative journey of more than 20 years of experience in freelance artistry, infusing a unique creative perspective into her professional landscape. Watt actively engages in pro bono projects driven by a commitment to making a positive impact in the community. Watt received an associate's degree from Illinois Central College and a bachelor's degree from Bradley University.
I'm moving these out of the way so I don't mess this up.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. No, it's the last one. Alcohol is right there. Just stick it out with us. I'm pretty sure that at least 4% of you are here because you thought there was going to be an adorable little penguin, and I'm so sorry to disappoint you. I'm so sorry. But I hope you'll stick it out anyway. Maybe take something away from our discussion. As I mentioned, my name is Bethany. I am the owner and CEO of Market Share Consulting. We're based in Oliphant, Pennsylvania, and we are experts in long-term marketing strategies. This is Brittany, our Executive Creative Director, but more importantly to me, she is my best friend. So, when the Chamber first asked me if I was interested in coming here today, no thanks, I'm good. I tell other people's stories, not my own. I put other people in the ads, I'm not in the ads. Well, you see how that played out. It's a bit of a role reversal. It took a lot of convincing, and I decided, you know what better than you? If I can bring Britt with me, we can do this together. Because what Britt and I do for each other, and for the past 9 years, is just continually empower each other together. We run a successful business, of course, but we are also raising 3 kick-ass girls. I have a spunky 7-year-old, Joni. She's about to be 8. She's my wild card. I have a classic first child, Piper. And Brittany has wonderful Ashlyn. She's about to be 12. She is the most creative outside of her mother I've ever met. She's very talented. Today, Brittany and I want to talk a little bit about the complex and ever-evolving process of pliable purpose, maybe purposes. I want to talk about how to be present in the moment with you. How am I doing? How to stay cool under pressure. Still doing okay? Still checking in? This is my first time public speaking ever this large, FYI. I don't do this, ever. Thank you. And I want to tell you a couple of stories about times when maybe we didn't handle things so gracefully, or gracefully, either way. So I'm glad that you're here, because today my friend and I get to share some of our experiences, a lot of laughter, I hope, and maybe even a metaphor or two about some penguins. So let's get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm a little short. Like Bethany said, my name is Brittany. I am the Executive Career Director for Market Share Consulting. And thank you. Thanks. I just want to make a quick disclosure. Bethany said, I'm not a public speaker, not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a therapist, and I'm definitely not a zoologist. So any facts or professional or opinions that I share today are strictly pulled from personal experiences that I've gone through in life and personal recounts and what I found that helped me the most through those challenges. So, to get started, I'd first like to explain how penguins found their way into this conversation. Penguins are incredibly resilient animals. Being part of the bird family, they seemingly drew the short stick and were denied the gift of flight. However, this absence of flight allowed this hardy little creature to develop some of the most adaptable survival skills in the entire animal kingdom. Like us, penguins depend on each other, and they find their strength in numbers. They work together to care for their young, and despite the world trying to literally eat them every day, they keep marching. Animals, in comparison to humans, are relatively simple. They don't muddy the waters with jealousy, ego, passive-aggressive nonsense. You'll never meet a passive-aggressive penguin. So when we're talking about a complex concept like purpose, an idea that stems from basic survival principles, what better correlation to draw than with one of God's toughest creatures, whose values in self-preservation and caring for others seem to mirror our own. They are masters in the game of survival. And in life's toughest moments, when we need to have poise, pivot at a moment's notice, and be present, they're a great source for inspiration. It doesn't hurt that they are also adorable and naturally come dressed for the occasion. So that's why they are here today. When I hear discussions about purpose, I hear it being defined as almost an overarching reason for being. That's really intense. For me personally, it's overwhelming, outrageously definitive, and frankly not a level of commitment I'm quite ready to make just yet. What happens when I state that my purpose is to create beautiful paintings, and then I tragically lose the ability to do so because both of my arms fall off, or I'm blinded because I didn't spend the money on the eclipse glasses like everybody told me I was supposed to do? Do I also lose my purpose? I was at a great lunch event last year, and the guest speaker gave a very thought-provoking recount on how she found her life's purpose and the drive that it gave her to propel forward once she realized what it was. Her story was incredibly inspiring, and I enjoyed it very much. At the end of her presentation, she asked us to close our eyes and envision our life's purpose. I didn't see anything, but I sure heard something. You know that flatline sound you hear on the TV show ER when somebody's passed on to the other side? The long, drawn-out beep, indicating a lack of signal? Yeah, it wasn't great. I peeked around to see if anybody else had as blank of a look on their face as I did, but everybody seemed pretty content with what they were seeing. Fakers. Okay. At first, I felt disappointed. Behind the curve, unfulfilled, undefined, less. Why wasn't I seeing anything? But then I stopped, and I gave myself some grace. It's been a rocky couple of years, and I'm sure you all can relate on some level, whether it be with the death of somebody close, divorce, career changes, or just kids being a pain in the ass. Life's hard and ridiculously busy. So Bethany and I got back to the office from this lunch, and I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I looked over at her and simply stated, "Dude, I don't have a purpose." It turns out that neither of us did. We dissected this concept over the next hour, and both of us agreed that for the notion of finding and living your purpose, for us, it's extremely pliable. An ever-evolving process that redefines and reinvents itself continuously through our entire lives. Pliable purpose allows you to be resilient, just like the penguins, pivoting when life throws curveballs and adapting to a constantly changing landscape. Whether it be personal or professional, your environment is going to change. Your purpose is going to change, and that's okay. Accepting change and thriving from the growth will determine the outcome of your success. Be present. If penguins aren't present, they get eaten. Most of us don't face that level of consequence. Hopefully, nobody's facing that level of consequence. But the results of not being present in your life can destroy the things you work so hard for. It increases your self-awareness when you're present and allows you to truly understand what's important to you. And even though that may change as your life changes, being present enables you to make choices without judgment. Have poise. From their elegant movements in the water to their refined social interactions within their colonies, penguins portray poise in a variety of different ways. Poise for us, simply stated, is the act of holding your shit together while the world crumbles around you. If I've taken anything away from my life experiences, it's the stress that I feel from those experiences has a far greater impact on my health than the experience itself. A lot of the turmoil that we experience as humans is created right up here. Having poise is the result of being present and mindful. Aside from stress management, poise inspires others. It builds confidence, and it strengthens your relationships. A couple of years ago, I witnessed one of the most impressive displays of poise that I've ever seen. And I'll let Bethany tell you her story about poise.
So I decided that an appropriate couple of stories to share today would be when I was challenged to practice poise a few times throughout my professional career. I hope you find something that connects with you or resonates with you in my story, or maybe someone else that you know that's going through something and you're struggling to connect with them, or what do I say to them? How do I help them through it? Maybe my story will spark something in you. My purpose, just for the next 5 minutes, because it's going to change again when I get home and see my kids, to switch up the laundry and do dinner, it's just to highlight the importance of maintaining poise or holding it together during those uncertain times, specifically in my story at work or during your career. So Jerry was a friend and mentor of mine for over 12 years. He was our boss, and a few years ago, we found out that he was very, very sick. So I'm gonna walk it back a few years before that, 2009, 2010, when I met Jerry. I was an intern for him. I was about to graduate from the University of Scranton. I was gonna move back home to New Jersey with my parents and figure out where to work in New York City, maybe have this worldwide, getting people coffee or something at this great agency. But Jerry offered for me to stay in Scranton. He said, why not work for me full time? And I thought, whoa, 2008, we survived it, I'm getting a job out of college? All right. Well, the salary wasn't exactly what I had expected for a move all the way from New Jersey, away from my family, and I thought, this is crazy. I had to hold it together. I had to let the penguin come out, and I had to say, listen, I don't know that this is gonna work short term. I don't know that that salary is going to work. I'm thinking, how can I afford rent? How can I afford a car, right? All of these panic situations that you don't want the person in the interview to see. Hold it together, Bethany, hold it together. How am I gonna afford that Yorkie puppy, that adorable Yorkie puppy I've been following on Facebook? I just really wanted that puppy, especially if I'm gonna move away from my family. I need a companion. So I took a few deep breaths and I thought, tell him about your interest in long-term growth within a company. Tell him about your desire for maybe agency ownership one day, right? Maybe this could be an apprenticeship. So we had that conversation, and I was shocked. It's kind of like Lauren said, right? Ask the question, you don't find out. He wanted to talk about his retirement plans, 5, 10, 15 years, and what did that look like for him, and maybe that's where our ownership opportunity would come in for me. Luckily, it looked like a lot more golf. I was very lucky. So, I accepted the position, and I started my apprenticeship. I was moving to Scranton, Pennsylvania. I had found my purpose. I was feeling very proud. 2 weeks later, I had been working there, and my Poise was tested again. A freelancer who we had hired to complete a project for a very large client had missed a deadline, and it was a big one. Jerry was furious, rightfully so. We were all upset. But what happened next was what kind of shocked this young 20-something-year-old who had just moved her entire life to Scranton. Bethany, if you can't fix this, if you can't manage this, if you can't help this freelancer through this and solve this problem and get this project out by Friday, you don't have a place here anymore. You can move back to New Jersey. There's no job here for you. What? How is something that someone else did on me? This has nothing to do with me. This is their fault. We hired them. This was their task. I'm not a manager. I'm a 20-something-year-old. They've been in the field for 15 years. Okay, take a few deep breaths. There was the penguin. Back up to the surface. It slid right across the ice that had formed between Jerry and I. I stood there with a pretty cold shoulder. I said, okay, I'll solve it. And I left that office, and I went to the freelancer's office. I had donuts and coffee in hand, and I knocked on their door, and I said, hi, how can I help you? How can we solve this problem together? And I thought, this is a great idea. Well, they weren't nearly as excited about the donuts as I was. I'm still curious why I love donuts. But I had to be poised. I had to be cool, collected, and calm. I had to get the job completed. Both of our jobs were on the line. My purpose, right, was on the line. So it took us 4 days. I showed up at their office every day, and every day got a little cozier, and we worked together, and we learned to work together, and we completed the project. I went back to the office on Friday. I walked in, and I said, Jerry, we did it. And he said, great job, kid. The account's yours. From here on out, you're taking care of this client. So that client is still one of our largest, and me and Brittany still service them today. They're lovely. But it was an opportunity that I didn't even know was there until I didn't freak out and walk out and say, I quit, this wasn't my problem. I said, I'll solve this problem, I'll figure this out, stay calm, work together, figure out what this other person needs help with. Who knows what's going on in their life, right? Maybe we can help and solve this problem. So, I faced plenty of challenges at work over the next 12 years, but I also got the Yorkie puppy. His name was Phineas, he was my loyal companion. In fact, I got at least 3 new purposes before I ever owned a business. Marriage. My husband and I will be married 11 years next month. Deaths. Thank you. Thanks. Deaths, of course. Kids. I have 2. My husband's deployment to Afghanistan for 6 months when my kids were 1 and 3. That was fun. Career, daycare struggles, personal struggles. I'm sure you can all relate. And through it all, I learned to navigate the possum and the penguin moments. Nothing really could have prepared me for what was coming next. I'm gonna go back to when we found out that Jerry was sick. A couple years ago, Jerry started experiencing some unusual leg pain, and Brittany and I urged him to get it checked. We knew this was unusual. He was a seasoned runner. He was very healthy and very young. In fact, Britt and I, do you remember, we went to Philly. I think it was about 2016, 2017. It's 2017. We went to Philly to cheer him on. He was running the Philadelphia Marathon. He was incredibly talented. Have you guys ever seen 2 young women hold their poise, hold their shit together on a Sunday morning with colossal hangovers in front of their boss? We did. But it always blew my mind that at mile 26 he was able to just keep running and have a conversation with us. That was wild. He was just incredible. So, 1 call later, Jerry was calling from the ER asking me to hold down the fort. This was a familiar request, like when he had a meeting with clients or when he was going on a vacation. Totally normal to ask Bethany and Britt, hold down the fort. And it was super easy once Britt came on the team. It was a little harder before you joined the team. It was a little harder to hold down the fort. But this time things were different. He was being rushed to the ER, and a series of tests and phone calls later, and it revealed stage 4 esophageal cancer, something that none of us were ready for, that none of us expected. His world was crumbling, so was mine. I saw 33 years old, and there goes my entire apprenticeship, all that work I put in. If something happens to him, it's all over. What am I gonna do? And my world was crumbling. A terrible thought to have when your friend is going through literal fucking hell, right? So I pushed it aside. Stay poised. Know that what's important now is very obvious. So, for the next 13 months, Brittany and I would become the anchors of the company. We had no instruction manual. There was no rule book. There was a hell of a lot of determination, so much respect, and probably enough caffeine to power a small city. A lot of caffeine. Jerry and his family needed stability. They needed security in a very uncertain time. Hell, we did. And our families did. So I pushed all of my anxieties aside, and I focused on maintaining my poise. Clients called, and they would inquire about Jerry all the time. Hey Bethany, can we schedule that meeting for next week when Jerry's feeling a little better? We can get back on track. Okay, how do I answer this question? This prognosis was very poor, but Jerry was a private person, and I respected that, and I still do respect that. So, during this time, if you can believe it, my then 11-year-old puppy Phineas was also diagnosed with cancer. I had no idea how to tell Jerry, which might be crazy for you to think that that was my first thought when my dog was diagnosed with cancer as well, but Jerry loved Phineas. In fact, we were a very dog-friendly office, and he invited us to bring our dogs all the time, including his own and Atlas. But I knew I had to. So when I finally had the courage to call and tell Jerry, listen, Finn's got cancer too. He said, Bethany, bring him to that office. Every single day, it's you and Britt, you're holding down the fort. Bring the little man with you. Take care of him. Spend time with him. It'll all work out. He would leave his own chemo treatments, Jerry, and come to the office, and him and Finn would lay on the floor and have heart-to-heart talks. I helped Jerry in all ways possible that I could that year, as much as I could. From work tasks, of course, like we mentioned, but also personal errands. We were friends. Babysitting Katie, his dog. We would have play dates at the office for Phineas and Katie and Atlas. And giving rides whenever they were needed. Whatever was needed, I was willing to do it to make sure that his family and he felt supported. Whatever it took. You guys still hanging with me? I know it's getting dark. Jerry battled cancer for a very short 13 months before he passed away. It was just a few weeks after my dog Phineas had passed away, about 2 weeks. And I'm really proud that I was able to keep my shit, as you said, together that year. Are we allowed to say shit on Netflix? It's not on, you're telling me it's not on Netflix. Is that right? I thought we were getting a Netflix special there. But the experience taught me that year that the meaning of true poise, at least as I saw it, is not about faking happiness. It's not about pretending like everything's okay, and that you know exactly what to do next. Obviously, none of us knew what to do next at any given point in time. It was a very rocky road. It was more about finding the strength to navigate challenges with professionalism and grace, surrounding yourself with people that are committed to being present for you. It was very, very lucky that I had Brittany during that time, and my husband as my anchors. Many other people too, tons of other people. This is just so important when you need them the most, right? To know who those people are. Without Brittany's presence specifically, my default would have been possum. But with her present, so was the penguin in me. There was a lot of holding it together for each other during that time. And our ability to be pliable and poised together more than likely came from a lot of our prior experiences. We didn't realize how many of those prior experiences were prepping us for one of the most difficult years of our lives. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Britt if you could share a little bit more about your personal experiences with pivoting when unexpected changes come up and how you've been able to navigate that over the past couple of years. Thanks for sticking it out with me, guys.
Pivoting. The definition of pivot is to turn or rotate like a hinge. Well, I don't believe that all hinges are created equal. think some hinges glide effortlessly from one 90-degree to the next without resistance or recoil. Then there's those other hinges that haven't seen a drop of grease in their lifetime, have spent their entire existence outdoors, and are most likely going to leave you needing a tetanus shot. But what determines the type of hinge that you have and your ability to pivot? I suppose it's different for everyone, but I'll tell you what allowed me to pivot the day that my entire world, or what I thought was my entire world, abruptly came to a screeching halt. You see, up until that day, Bethany and I had worked together for about 6 months. I considered her a friend, but that day she would prove to be my best friend. I walked into her office, pale as a ghost that morning, and I told her that I discovered some terrible news, and that I felt like I owed her an explanation because I didn't think I was going to be as efficient that day in the graphic design department as I was most days. I told her that my marriage was ending. Bethany, being literally the most supportive, optimistic human that I've ever met, very reminiscent of Poppy from Trolls. If you haven't seen that movie, see it. Amazing. She got up and she quietly closed the door. She assured me, the best that she could, not being a fortune teller, that no matter what, everything was going to eventually be okay. And she was right. She simply just let me be and vent until I was ready to go back to my desk and absorb the thoughts of starting my life all over again. The feelings that overwhelm you when life requires you to pivot drastically can be paralyzing. Fear, grief, and uncertainty can cloud your ability to stay present and pivot in directions that help your situation and not hurt it or make it worse. When your core pillars and driving factors of what you thought was your purpose are taken away, a lot of times your identity is lost with it. Losing half of your shit in a divorce pales in comparison to waking up in the morning and not knowing who the hell you are anymore. I refer to my previous conceptions of purpose as rigid purpose. Rigid purpose will sink you because it makes loss heavier than it needs to be. It attaches you to a sense of self that life will inevitably change. For better or worse, everything eventually changes. What made me feel strong enough to get myself to work that day and pivot when I needed to in order to navigate through these changes was the fact that in that office, with my coworker, I was valued. I was cared for, and I was safe. When you start to align yourself with humans like that, you start to understand and see that your purpose is not simply defined. You're more than a wife. You're more than a coworker. When I went into that office that day, believing that those were my only purposes in life, but I left knowing that I was much more than those things. With all of this talk and thought surrounding purpose these last couple of months preparing for this discussion, it dawned on me that over the years, I have been developing my sense of pliable purpose to help redirect my thoughts in a positive direction. Pliable purpose evolves and adapts with you, unlike rigid purpose that anchors you to a stone that will at some point sink. Where my original purpose surrounding my first marriage was to build a lifelong partnership and create a stable family environment, my adapted pliable purpose became to cultivate self-care, emotional healing, and a renewed sense of independence. With that, and the support of amazing people in my life, I started horseback riding again. I didn't just stop with starting to ride again. This I can rule the world shit really took flight. And in April, I took my first lesson in 15 years. In June, I qualified for the Colonial Classic. And in September, I placed 5th in a class of 45. And when I got home, I bought a horse. I gained friendships at that barn that I will have for the rest of my life. I picked up a paintbrush and dove back into my artwork. I entered art shows and put myself out there in ways that I never had before. I started hunting, started fishing, lots of things. I tried tennis. How many of you out there play tennis? Do we have any tennis players? Tennis players? Yeah? Lots of respect. Tennis is hard. Really hard. It wasn't my thing, but I learned from it like everything else. The coolest thing about all of this is you don't have to be good at these things to learn and have fun and grow. I had never picked up a tennis racket a day in my life. And I'm sure there's lots of people up at Birchwood that thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me. But that's okay, it was fun. And for the record, I didn't quit tennis because it was hard. I quit tennis because I'm a crazy horse girl that would rather get thrown by a 1,200-pound beast and get hurt that way than twisting my ankle on a tennis court. I applied this adaptable mindset to many other aspects of my life. Separation is complex with kids. My original purpose of being there for my daughter 24/7 was cut in nearly half with shared custody. My original rigid purpose had to evolve into a pliable purpose of being the best damn role model I could for that little girl. And by showing her that despite life's challenges, when you work your ass off and be kind to those around you and stay open to growth, your opportunities are absolutely endless. This shift in focus on my quality in parenting over the quantity of my parenting resulted in me being an incredibly proud mom to a nearly straight-A student, brilliant, creative little girl that I swear to you will illustrate for Disney one day. Your kids become what you show them, not what you tell them. Doing good for you is one of the most effective ways that you can do good for them. Aside from keeping yourself sane and healthy, you also set an example for them by taking good care of yourself so that they do the same for themselves when you're not there to do it for them. A penguin can't feed its babies if they don't feed themselves too. What gave me the power to pivot that day and the months that followed was a best friend, binge-watching Vampire Diaries, don't judge me, my angel of a daughter, and rediscovering myself as a human capable of much more than I had previously thought. When you can control your perspective and stay present in the midst of chaos, when one door closes, embrace the opening of others ahead. Your strength and capacity to grow will lead you down a path in pursuit of a life and partnerships aligned with your ever-evolving sense of purpose, even better than the one that you had before. Now, I've shared some experiences about purpose and pivoting pertaining to my personal life. When it comes to your professional life, no matter how hard you try to keep the personal things out, they inevitably find their way in. They are a massive part of you anyways, right? You can't suffer a serious physical injury before you take a seat at your desk and type away like nothing happened. So how can you be expected to shut off mentally for 8 hours when you're dealing with a lot of stress? It's not realistic. In my field, the term creative burnout is frequently mentioned. I have absolutely experienced burnout in my career, and by pivoting my behaviors and mindset like a penguin, facing an arduous 70-mile trek across the tundra, I was able to navigate my way through those challenges. See, we all have these boundaries that form a perimeter, marking just how much shit we're capable of tolerating in a day's time. Some days, more perimeter breaches can be tolerated than others. Disgruntled bosses, or office environments, too heavy of a workload, are all things that can encroach on those perimeters. Burnout occurs when those barriers are chronically being pushed on. And I say chronically because everybody is bound to have a bad day at work, maybe even like a couple of bad days. Those won't cause burnout. They may cause too many margaritas on Friday night, but they will not cause burnout. Burnout comes when your perimeters are impeded on over an extended period of time, months, years even. Some of the signs of creative burnout that I experienced were a complete lack of passion and zero motivation to do the things for my job that I once would get so overly excited about. Self-doubt in my ability to complete projects for clients. It was an awful hurdle, especially when my job was to be creative and come up with these amazing ideas. I quickly realized that I had two choices. Quit my profession and go raise mini Highland cows, or figure out how to kick this burnout. I chose the latter because I love what I do. What ultimately pulled me out of this burnout was that I started time blocking my days. Every day I was sure to build in multiple 10 to 15 minute areas of time where I would do whatever I need for me that day. Some days it would be just a walk around the building. Other days it would be redesigning my living room on Pinterest. Other days it would be journaling about how my burnout was affecting me that day. Over time, I found that these breaks recentered me. They kept me more in touch with myself, and I was able to reclaim a sense of purpose in my creative space because I was the one driving that ship again. I wasn't changing what I was doing for work, but just how I was doing it. Not only did the adaptation of those breaks help me overcome my burnout, but it also made me more productive. Again, another example of what happens when you embrace adaptability and change. You end up in a much better place than you were before. Creativity flows more freely in an environment that supports self-care and creative expression. Artists and creatives are not easy humans to manage. We can be opinionated, emotional, and hostile at times. But that's what you pay us for. Because with that comes creativity, depth, storytelling, art. When you create an environment that allows those things to breathe, you'll see a level of fulfillment in your employees that impacts their entire lives, even outside the office. I'll let Bethany talk to you about the culture of a workplace and framing purpose within a company that equips its employees to be the best version of themselves.
So I worked for a long time in a world where getting up and showing up was all that mattered. If I didn't feel well in the morning, I would hop in my car and I'd roll down the windows in the 12-degree January Pennsylvania air, and I would convince myself that some fresh air will do the trick before I get there. I'll feel fine. Everything will be okay. Well, I'm thinking that the reason why is probably because of all of my business owner role models. I watched them while I grew up do the same thing. I'm talking about my grandfather who owned a business, my uncles who all owned their own businesses in every industry imaginable, from a chef in catering to the Agway style store of horse feed to engineering. My father, my uncles, my grandfather, and then I'm thinking it probably has a little bit of something to do. I've thought about it now a little bit more since we started talking about it. Is maybe those days where I woke up not feeling well when I was younger and my mom sent me to school with Dr. Tylenol. Don't judge her, you've all done it to your kids too. I did. Once or twice. I watched them work themselves tirelessly, right? And hard work is endlessly important. But I think what fosters our ability to do this is the environment that we're living and working in. I've looked back now many times at what truly built the success of these people in my life. And I've realized it's actually quite often how they treated people around them, how they treated their employees, how they treated their customers, and how are they treating the other people in their lives that were surrounding them and helping them to do this. The people that were lifting them up and telling them, you've got this, you can do this. How are they treating them? Like Brittany said, our personal lives and our professional lives are intrinsically linked. It is absolutely impossible to compartmentalize these two things. Hard as we'll try, right? Let me give you an example. So it is 5:30 or so in the morning, right? It snowed 2 feet last night. And the phone rings before your alarm goes off. Hello? Good morning, this is Matthew Barrett, Superintendent of the Western Wayne School District, calling to tell you that today will be a flexible instruction day. Have a great day. What did he just say? What is a FID day? Well, FID day, for those of you that aren't parents raising children, I'm certain because I had this part of my life before where there were other hurdles, but this is the one I can most closely relate to now. It is becoming a second grade teacher, a fourth grade teacher, a stay-at-home mom, a personal chef, an entertainer, a tutor, you get it, right? All in the same day. And then, all in this moment, still dark out at 5:30 a.m., you realize, oh my God, I've got to call my boss. And I've got to tell them that there is no way I am making it to the office today. There's no way. And you get this sinking feeling in your gut. Oh gosh, how am I going to tell them? How am I going to tell them this list that I just listed, right? Without sounding like I'm really overselling it for a day off. I'm going to get what I believe is that passive-aggressive silence on the other end of the phone until you're done selling your story. And they say, no problem, log your time. Click. And you hang up, looking around the house going, where do I start? And are they mad at me? Are they upset with me? Did I control the weather last night? Did I break my snowblower and have to shovel? Did I call off from school? No, that wasn't me. So I decided a long time ago that when I became that person on the other end of the phone, that I would say, is there any way that I can help today? Before anything else comes out of my mouth. And quite often what I found is that it's a really simple request. It's really easy to say yes to this request. It's, hey boss, I need you to help me get this project out. I promised the client that they'd have proofs by 12 today, and I still don't have power from this storm. Can you help me out? Keyword, our client, right? Yeah, it is my job. I am in charge here. I can help you. You get settled, fire up your generator, get your horse and ride into town, get whatever you need. It's gonna be fine. We'll get it done together. Other times, boss, I need 4-hour Swedish massage and a margarita. What did you just ask for? It's 5:30 in the morning. I don't think that you've ever specifically asked for that. Maybe something different. But creating a thriving creative culture requires fostering a work environment that celebrates individuality and promotes independence, right? Encourages open communication. But that means that we need to take responsibility for our own well-being, our own projects, for our own tasks, for our own responsibilities. So I've been told many times, it's a good throwback to my friend Jerry, and I love him for this. Bethany, you talk too much. Have you ever worked at one of those places, I'm sure some of you can relate, where you have that regularly scheduled meeting at the same time every week, the same day, every time, and you're only going to talk about work and nothing personal? I get it. I understand these meetings. In that meeting, like there's some of you that can probably, Patty, you're here. Patty knows. I would like to ask everyone, how was your weekend? And I was very quickly reminded, Bethany, keep it short. Rightfully so. I can talk a lot. Am I bored? Are you guys okay? You still hanging in? All right, cool. Here's the thing. If I don't ask my team how their weekend was, I don't know how the hell their weekend was. That is, until I'm catching a vibe. And their work ain't working. Something's wrong. So I've been known to take 10 minutes, grab that person quietly and say, you need 10? We're gonna go talk? What do we need? And what I found is that we've got an incredibly productive 7 hours, 50 minutes left in the day. Because whatever it was, more than likely has nothing to do with my office. It has something to do with what's going on at home. And I just need a minute to shake that off, or go find the arm that fell off and get you a Band-Aid, so you can focus on your work, right? By prioritizing self-care, also setting healthy boundaries, and reclaiming that sense of purpose, we're allowing ourselves and our team to experience a higher level of fulfillment, at least I hope. A few years ago, Britt had a book on her desk. I believe the title was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul. I kid you not. There's some designers here. You guys ever read this one? Yeah, I thought, oh shit. Sorry, Netflix. I can't believe that this book jumped off the shelf at Brittany at Barnes & Noble. Why not 50 Shades of Grey? Anything else? So I grabbed myself a copy, and I read it fast. Because it is a different world from me. What we do is different. And here's what I learned. Here's my biggest takeaway from that book and from countless conversations with other incredible creatives that I've met in the industry since. A happy and a healthy creative is an unstoppable force. Creative individuals need to feel their heart and souls that their work has purpose, that their work has meaning, and that they are contributing to something bigger, that it matters. We're all 100% yearning for a sense of purpose. I know we've stated both times, like, oh shit, we don't have a purpose. We've got a couple. The point is that they're just constantly changing and evolving, right? So, this motivation, I've watched turn into pure inspiration, and what I hope is a job that feels more like a calling and not just a day job, maybe. Yeah, good. So after learning what was important to Britt, I made a point to encourage her desire to work on her outside of the office. Quite often in a role like mine as an agency owner, it can be real intimidating to watch your artist thrive outside of your office, right? What if Britt runs off to Paris and starts an art studio and leaves me forever, guys? You're not doing that, right? It's not planned? Here's the thing, the reality is that if you're fostering a healthy environment for them to thrive in, they won't want to leave. I love seeing Brittany's unique work in art studios and on volunteer projects, both inside and outside of our office. Why? because it means that she is flexing those muscles that keep those creative juices flowing and ultimately makes our collective work better in our office for our clients and for each other. I've also made a point, of course, to acknowledge the importance of our physical and our mental health. If someone is not feeling well, I encourage them to visit a healthcare professional as quickly as possible and take time to recover. You can't go giving people 2 months off on a whim. That's not what I'm talking about here. You can't go discover yourself at my office. I do need you to come and work. But the reality is that this only works in relationships that are built on trust, right? And open communication. How about when we call the doctor and we say, hey, listen, I've got this persistent headache and it won't go away, or I've got this back pain, we don't know why, I need an appointment. And they say, oh, no problem. Yeah, we've got an appointment today at 1:30. Oop, there's that sinking gut feeling again. I've got to tell my boss I gotta leave early. How am I gonna do this? Oh, it's okay, ma'am. We have another open appointment at 7:30 a.m. Oh, yes, that one. I want that one. It's on October 29th. Shit. Okay, well, now what do I do? So I've made a point to let everyone know that I encourage that 1:30 appointment today. Please go. We'll figure it out. It's my job to pick up the slack so you can go get checked out, right? What I found is that when this happens, they're coming into work and they're feeling more fulfilled and they're being taken care of and they're getting these issues resolved versus me pressuring them into waiting until October. And they're just calling out sick every month all summer long. They're not showing up anyway, right? Because it's unresolved. We have a responsibility to each other to set that healthy boundary that trusts you're gonna go get it checked out, you're gonna be taken care of, right? Because if you go and get checked out, I know that I can pick up the slack and we'll get back on track tomorrow or next, whatever the case is, we'll be all right. It has to be built on trust. What do we need to thrive? The openness to communicate about what that is and recognize what's possible to make that happen for each other. So more often, I'm finding that productivity in our office is through the roof because I believe you can correct it and be honest. I don't believe that there's fear in my office to approach me about anything because I try to approach it with open-mindedness and without judgment so we can solve whatever it is. We've built trust, at least in our office, that the work will get done, that the clients will be taken care of, but so will we. The office culture that I've created is a culmination of experiences, some that I've shared with you today, of a little too much give. Love my father. He gave a lot. And not enough give at all. Catering is hard, folks. But giving each person the opportunity to express their wants and needs without judgment, but with open-mindedness, has allowed me to realize that a happy and healthy office culture that results in successful and profitable business, which is important, is absolutely achievable. So I often remind myself, be present, know and understand your people, treat them well, and the rest will all follow.
What is viewed as a limitation by some, the flightless trait of the penguins to me, is their greatest asset. It's because of this inability to fly that they are required to pivot, be present, and pliable when their environment gets hard. They cannot pack up and fly off. And while some humans exercise this flight response quite well, it's clear that when you put in the time and effort into discovering and caring for yourself every day, and you show up present with poise and open to pivot when need be, amazing things can happen. If I were to pick one bird to not start shit with, it would be the flightless bird, the penguin. Because they only have one option, and flight is not one of them. So whether or not you know what your purpose is today, or you're on your way to discovering it, know that at a moment's notice, you will be faced with change. Embrace it, pivot, and enjoy the continuous rediscovery of yourself throughout your entire life. Most importantly, surround yourself with people that support that. Thank you, guys.
So, our first time speakers, right? Another round of applause. You guys were great. I don't think you had anything to worry about. one from Chelsea. We're taking one. He has a microphone for you real quick.
Bethany, I have a question for you. So I really like.
I can hear you fine, girl.
Okay. I really liked what you said about being accepting of people having stuff to do outside of
the office. How do you balance that with people not taking advantage of that?
So people who are just working themselves to the bone without approaching you?
Well, people taking advantage of having to leave early, of being sick, of taking sick time, of going to appointments.
Yeah, where all of a sudden, like, the approach to, I love this, during the pandemic, there was this new fad, I'm going to call it, where companies, to draw people in outside of the whole hybrid side of work, right, and work from home, were offering unlimited PTO. Have you guys heard of unlimited PTO? Do any of you have unlimited PTO? I'm curious how it works for you. It's not unlimited. Read the bylines, right? The idea is that, like I said, it's built on trust. It's built on a relationship of trust. And I actually had someone ask me one time in like a panel discussion at, I think it was the U, they were college students, and she asked me, how do I turn down a job when I'm offered a job? I just have too many workers. And I said, sweetie, if you don't want to work for me, I don't want you working for me. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. I want humans who want to be here, who want to work hard, and who put everything into it, right? Like you said, like I don't want it to feel like a day job for you. I'm hopeful that I can create a culture that makes it your passion, something that you're feeling really strongly about. So, I mean, for me, when those things start to dwindle and it becomes a habit where you notice that there's a human that every single Monday is coming in at 10 instead of 9, right? Like, oh, but it's unlimited PTO and it's only adding up, and they're starting to create their own schedules and things like that. I try and make it really clear up front that that's not what PTO is, and that's not what this flexible relationship is. It's really pretty strict, and in a sense that it's legitimate. I do offer, if we're getting more technical, I do ask for medical notes if it's a medical thing, and this kind of helps me tie that into as like a more concrete rule, right? So if that person keeps showing up every single Monday at 10 o'clock without that medical note, everybody already knows that there's an issue. Like, they're already afraid to approach me about it, which I tend to nip these things in the bud within 2 weeks anyway. But ultimately, I would say create some structure around it, and then it's built on trust. If you grab the note and you send it in, whatever. I mean, Brittany's a unique animal. I don't think you've ever given me a note because I know too much about you. Weird. But I would recommend on that side of things, if it's truly a medical situation, or if it's truly even like a school situation, or whatever the case is, like get to know your people and build that trust. My team is incredibly small. Currently, you're looking at it.
Thank you.
Very good. We have one more quick announcement from Miss Amanda from ESSA Bank, who is our networking sponsor. Give her 2 seconds of your time. Thank you.
We're going to make this so quick because I know you want the drinks. So thank you everyone for coming to the 2024 Empower event this year. I hope that we all find their purpose. I've already given my resignation. I'm learning how to fly a plane. Like, so many things happening in my head right now. So ESSA is sponsoring the networking mixer. So go out, meet people, have a drink, and enjoy the rest of your night.